Okay, what up, family? All right, I told you I was gonna look into this case a little further, and I just want to share the information that I had came up with. And for those that aren't really familiar with it, I'm gonna just share I'm gonna share like 20-second clip of this video just to catch y'all up to speed, and then I'm gonna show y'all who the shooter is, and just make a couple of quick points. Then we out of here. All right, check this out.
Tamarack took matters into his own hands when a man was spotted on his property trying to break into his car. A struggle happened and the homeowner ended up shooting and killing the accused burglar. NBC6 reporter Amanda Placencia was in the neighborhood all day, and she has more details on what led up to this shooting.
An early morning breaking into cars turned deadly for one accused burglar in Tamarack.
One of the homeowners in this neighborhood was out walking his dog early in the morning and spotted a man who was walking in between cars.
The Broward Sheriff's Office says they received a call from that resident shortly after 5 Saturday morning, reporting a suspicious person checking car door handles near Northwest 82nd Street and 95th Avenue. But then that homeowner took matters into his own hands.
When he saw him come up and start trying to burglarize his vehicle, he came outside the home armed and confronted the man.
And that's when things escalated.
There was an altercation between the two. The homeowner did fire his weapon, injuring the suspect, who was transported to Broward Health North, where he was later pronounced dead.
The man who died has been identified as 22-year-old Walter Gene Saintelus, and records show this wasn't his first time in trouble with the law.
We do know that he has a history of burglaries. Additionally, we have been able to confirm with several residents in this neighborhood that their vehicles were burglarized.
Investigators were seen dusting for fingerprints.
Okay, family. So for those that weren't familiar with the case, all right, that's the case. Let me just add this in real quick before I show y'all who the shooter is. When she instantly was trying to say that the young man had a history of burglary, I had looked that up. I wanted to check into his history real quick. And so what I found out is that the charges that he had, I think one from 2016 and another one from 2017. One was he was in possession of a electronic device / weapon, which kind of made me think of a stun gun maybe. And another time he was arrested and he was charged with loitering and I guess not being able to show proper ownership of property equaling up to $300. So that sounds like maybe in possession of some stolen property. So I don't know about a history of burglary according to the records that they put out there, but I just want to insert that. So all right, now y'all see that it was posted on the 13th according to this website, and I'm putting this out here on the 17th. So it took me at least 3, almost 4 days of looking up who the individual was that was shot, as well as the shooter. And so the shooter name again is Frank Johnston, and the young man name is Walter Gene Saintelus. So after about 3 days or so of trying to find out who Frank Johnston was, I kept running into dead ends, all the Google searches, real limited information. So I had to kind of reach out to people that was in the area. People sent me some information. So now we know who the shooter is, and I'm going to share that with y'all. And so before in the last video, I ain't attached my opinion to it, but let me say this. I really believe now, after digging into this a little further, that the media and the police officers of Broward County and this individual, Frank Johnston, they are conspiring to construct a stand your ground defense from Mr. Johnston. I really believe, from what I found out, that Mr. Johnston is in full knowledge of the stand your ground law is a person who is familiar with weapons. Uh, they play it like he's 64 years old. Some websites mention an elderly 64-year-old man. So I'm gonna show you who he is, and I think it goes into explaining why after 3-4 days I couldn't really find any information, like real limited information about him. And this information I got on him now with the picture that was, sent in from somebody in the area. So, that's what it take a lot of the time. So, all right, let me show y'all who this Mr. Johnston is, and then I'm gonna just make a couple of points. Then we out of here. All right. So that's Mr. Johnston. And Mr. Johnston is a retired police officer. I'm still in the process of finding out from where, but he's 64 years old. And this is the individual, and a couple points I'm going to just make real quick, and then we out of here. Let me just say this. This individual on that morning, 4 or so, 5 a.m. in the morning, was walking his dog. Like I said, that whole story didn't really sound right because, for one, if you were walking your dog and you seen the young man burglarizing cars, you did what most citizens would do. You would go home and call the police. But after that, everything to me is sounding orchestrated. It's because if you know the stand your ground law, what the lady, Mrs. Concepcion, who we saw in the interview, said is that Mr. Saintelus, he came into Mr. Johnston's yard, and at that point, Mr. Johnston came out of his home and confronted him, and then an altercation occurred, and he shot him. So that's the stand your ground law. Like, that's how you would describe that. And so it just, I would think an officer would know exactly what to tell the police. And then it would also explain why his image wasn't put out there. And so a couple of points I wanted to make, or just share, that I found out after looking into this. Like I said, this individual, after looking into him, I found out that he was a registered voter, a Republican. And then I also found out that Mr. Saintelus, that they calling a burglar, I found out he was a registered voter and he was listed as an independent. So now also, I would think that instead of going out to confront the young man, because you did just call the police, you would just wait for the police to respond and let them do their job. But as the article said, he decided to take matters into his own hands. So, okay, so now also what I really wanted to, not really wanted to, but another thing I wanted to point out that I think maybe some of y'all noticed as I've been talking, and maybe y'all like, man, will you go ahead and zoom in on that? Is that what I'm seeing? Screwed up, I guess. I see it. So y'all see that Confederate flag. So I think that's saying a lot. And it helps explain to me why I didn't see his image anywhere and why the news didn't mention that. And also, a little side note, what I found out about Mr. Saintelus is that his family was, I believe, primarily from Haiti. So now with the comments, that Trump making, I wouldn't expect that the news would want to report that a retired police officer killed a young man whose parents or whose family is from Haiti. I just don't. And then with that Confederate flag tatted right there on the arm, yeah, I really don't think that's what they want to put out there. So that's really the reason why I was, or I should say, that helps validate the thought that I was having as far as this stand your ground orchestration that they're trying to put together because this had to be somebody of some importance, or knew somebody or something like it. So y'all seen Frank Johnston, 64 years old. So I would think him being familiar with handguns, familiar with firearms, uh, him taking the route of coming out of his home. In my opinion, family, to be honest, I kind of think he just hunted him on up. Once he seen the young man out there, he made the call to the 911. He knew he only had a certain amount of time to make the kill. I mean, what else? I mean, people slick. So that's what I found out, family. I'm gonna keep digging up information on this because it's like, this is kind of like that Trayvon situation where Zimmerman followed the young man and then ended up saying, well, and this is after he called the police. I kind of feared for my life, and so I shot him. Like kind of the same situation, family. So, and in that case, I think it was months that had went past before it was reported, and then before any charges was filed, and that was just due to because people like me and you paying attention, being concerned, sharing information on social medias, like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and then the news, they troll those platforms, and then they pick up on stuff, and then they report it from there. So I think that's what we kind of is seeing developing here. uh, we'll just stay on top of it. People sending me the information, keep sending it. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm gonna let y'all know in a day or so what else I find out. Like I said, I'm gonna try to find out where Mr. Frank Johnston was a officer at, his previous record. Uh, so all right, family, that's it. That's what I came up with, and peace.